Alright guys, we got in a little deeper than we thought we were going to get, and that is a very typical thing when you get into doing any kind of rust repair. Whatever you're seeing on the surface, it always goes deeper than that. There's layer after layer of components in here to make everything strong and structural. As you can see in here, it's just super spongy now. There's not much support in here whatsoever. And the brace that was underneath here, like this, is all rotted out as well. And that's sitting right over there as well, so you can kind of see that one is all rotted out. Both sides were rusted underneath there because all the moisture gets built up and rust and or dirt and turns into mud, and it just holds it right inside of there. And look at how crazy structural that piece is. This is probably 10 gauge material here. This is 1/8 inch material, pretty beefy, heavy duty, and luckily they do reproduce these. We got these from Classic Industries. Part number B11000 is the part number, and the other side is 11001. So that's your right and your left braces for it, and that's from Classic Industries. We got these, and it's one of the few parts that they do reproduce for this car. And the floor pans in the back, we just made these from scratch completely because we didn't want to wait for that, which turns out we needed the brace and we had to wait anyway, so we could have got these. These are available for the back section here. They're also available for the front part right here, and the toe boards right here. You can get patches for that, but we're not going to have to do that. But this is the brace that actually holds the seat up right here, believe it or not, and it's super flimsy and flexible. But once you get a brace in like this one on this other side, that strengthens everything up. And we do have layer after layer in here. So right here is the part that holds the seat in. This goes over the top of that as well. So this sits in here like this, and will get welded in also. So between this piece, and the brace in here, that makes up a ton of strength in the car. So we're going to, right now, we got our fitment is really good on this one. Our floor pan in here, we got to fit over the existing sheet metal right now. So we're going to do a couple pieces at a time. We're going to do a cross brace here. We're going to get that tacked all in there. Then this other side right here, this piece was just gone. So this one we can do a little patching on and it'll be okay. This one we're going to have to remake completely this component, which is another tricky component piece and everything to make. They don't reproduce that either, so we're going to have to make something work for that also. We're going to get the brace in here, we're going to get this piece tacked in here, and then we're going to come along to the floor pan section in the back. And what we'll do is get it down in there as well as we can and get it clamped in there, and then we'll go along the outside edge with a scribe and scribe a very accurate line to cut on. And this piece was made, we did some rolled beads in here and for the strength, and then once this is in place, these corners all will match up nice, and it's a nice seam to weld in there. But this is all rolled up with we did shrinking, just a small manual Harbor Freight style shrinker stretcher. So all these edges are all shrunk right here, and then rolled over with with some hammer and dolly work and everything. So that fits beautiful. But we did get a little paint on there. We'll have to take this paint off before we weld these in, so we got a nice clean surface to weld to. That is it in a nutshell. So we're going to get our braces welded in there. We're going to get this piece welded up next. Then we'll get our floor pan scribed. Then we'll cut this out, and we're going to do some tack welds all along there. But there's a technique I want to show you that's it's a two-man job, and it's the most important job for this, because this metal gets really thin back here. There's some pretty rotted spots here that the metal is going to be really thin, and there's not going to be a whole lot of material there to weld to, so it's going to want to blow big holes. So what we're going to do is one person will be underneath with a copper spoon, and that copper spoon does more than one thing. It acts as a heat sink, so it takes and wicks some of that heat, that intense heat away from the sheet metal, and it absorbs it so it doesn't blow a big hole. And then it works as a backing, so it doesn't just blow a big hole through there. And between the heat sink and the backing, you can put that copper all back behind there. The weld does not stick to it, so now it just puddles into the fusing the two parts of the metal together, and it works fantastic. So we'll show you that once we get to that part, but that's it in a nutshell. We got a lot of welding left to do here, and we'll get this thing looking like new here, so stay tuned for some more tips and tricks. Here I want to show you the process for what we're doing here with the floor pans, and explain that a little bit. It would be a good benefit for you to kind of know what sequence to go about doing things. So everybody wants to just take a floor pan and cut it out, and they're like, oh, we're going to get rid of all the rust first, and then they just cut big hole in the middle of that, get rid of that, and just really don't have a good game plan. So I don't cut the whole center of the floor out until there is a good game plan and I can get the floor pans over the top of those. And if you're buying ones that are already made, a lot of people screw this up, and or if you're making them yourself, the same thing. It's really easy to do is to cut too much on the outer perimeter right away. So what I do is I come around about an inch before where I'm going to cut, and I'll cut that all out. I'll leave the little shelf right at the bottom, so that way the new floor pan can go in there and lay down inside of there, and that bottom shelf that you left on there will hold it up into place. And then I will scribe, after I get it exactly pushed down where I want it to be, then I'll scribe a line all around for a final cut line. And that's what we did on the other side, so that's all cut out. And I'll show you the layers. So we got the brace underneath it. We have this piece that we're remaking a new one of those right now completely, that holds the seat up, because this one was just blasted. The other one on the other side is okay. So that's already there, but that goes under this piece right here. So this is another patch that's not available anywhere, and we made that as well. We made the floor pans for it from scratch, and those will fit down in here. And you notice we didn't follow exactly the original game plan and everything. And I honestly, please throw me a comment below and tell me why all these plug holes are all over the floor everywhere in this car. They're in the front, the back, the trunk. They have all these little rubber plugs, and I have no idea what their intent was, why it's got all these extra holes in the floor and then plugs in them just to capture all the stuff. I don't get it. I don't understand it, and it's really stupid. So we didn't incorporate that into this particular build. So here's what our layers look like on the other side. Let's just go walk around this thing. And oh, and by the way, we got all the trim on the car now too, and oh my goodness, it looks so much better with that trim on there. It's absolutely awesome looking with that trim on it comparatively to no trim. So we got all the dings taken out of that, and dents, not all of them I should say, but most of them. It actually came out pretty good. And now back on the floor pans, we have our layer underneath there that holds the seat brace up. That's all done, matched in between it. So this is another patch panel that me and my friend Ben made. And this is our brace all welded in it. So the old one is all out. The spot welds are all drilled out. Now they are all plug welded. And now we have our final floor pan fitment. And all of these holes right here are going to be onto that, they're drilled onto that brace. So this has been pushed down, mashed down, scribed, and I'll show you one little last tip and trick, and it is speaker magnet. Really work good, any big magnets, but oh my god, you will ever so hate yourself or me for giving you the suggestion if you don't wear gloves when you use the magnets, because if you look at it, see all those tiny little needle filings from the grinder, the magnet will just pick it up and you'll have metal slivers in your hand for weeks. So I put the magnets on like that. Got another couple other magnets also, and we let the magnet kind of hang halfway out there. Now it has a shelf right here for the pan to sit onto. Now we have a couple magnets behind there, so this is so I can do it by myself and put this floor pan down in there and get it tacked up. So that's the final construction of this. We're going to get this all tacked up, and then we'll show you the tips and tricks about welding the whole pan with a copper backer behind it, which helps absolutely drastically. So there's our little tips and tricks for installing floor pans and complicated patch panels. On to the next. Final. Well, one of my most unfavorite things to do in a car is doing rust repair. It always goes farther than you want it to. The little small rust holes and pits end up opening up a can of worms. And this is so uncomfortable for me to be in here with my ankle still. It kills. But I want to show you through this process. So once we fit the floor pans down in it, it's kind of a two-person job because it wants to spring up because it's held up on these corners right here. So to push it down in there solid and get it down all the way where it's supposed to be, like right down here, it gets welded to this brace right here. So that needs to be pushed down tight all the way down to that brace before we can scribe around it. So now we take a scribe and go all the way around with a scribe first, and now we'll cut that out to right to it because this is a butt joint. The panels just butt up together like this. They're not overlapping or anything like that. They're just butted straight up, and there's a reason for that. You don't want to create a shelf like that to capture water, and then it's also an offset that you have to bondo and smooth up. This is a butted panel. So then we go around and tack the whole thing in place, and it will always leave buckles in the differences in the heights of the sheet metal. So we, right around the tacks, you go around with a hammer, sometimes from the bottom, from the inside needs to go up, or the top needs to go down. And it's a matter of bumping the hammer and dolly around to get everything flat and perfectly flush with itself before you even start welding. Because the more the panels are offset and everything, it'll want to blow a hole in that edge and just make it way worse. So, and I want to show you a couple tools that I use constantly and something you can make up super easy. This is just a piece of copper pipe you'd get from Menards or Home Depot or whatever, and I smash it down flat, and then you can shape it to the point that you want to get like this, is shaped to this curve on the inside here. So that works as a backer because it works as a heat sink for one, and this is really the most difficult stuff you're gonna ever try to weld. See the pits in here, right, like this? There's still metal, it's still pretty solid, but that is a chemical composition now that does not want to weld very good. It spits, it pops, it doesn't burn very well with that copper spoon behind it. And this is eventually, it's sacrificial as well. So now I'll just cut the end of this off and I'll flatten it out more. And you really want to put a wood handle on it like this because it gets super hot super fast otherwise, because copper conducts electricity so well. But then just flat pieces of copper sometimes, like to get into this corner right here, we had a bit of a gap in this corner because when we pushed it all tight down to this brace, it opened up the gap a little bit more. So that copper was able to back that up, and I can weld and fill a 1/4 inch wide gap all at the same time. So that is a super, super helpful tool. This is a tool for automotive or aircraft panels for doing this exact thing, and it works. I wish I would have showed you that before we welded everything up, because when the difference in height of the panels, you can get this in there and pull one side up or push the other side down, tack it, and then you got a panel alignment tool. And I've used a butter knife forever for that, and a friend of mine, Dan Pate, gave me this tool that is absolutely awesome, and it's made of 4140 forged steel, and it's super hard, rigid, and you can do a little prying with that, and it works absolutely phenomenal. So might have to ask William Trombley where he gets these things from, because they're absolutely phenomenally awesome, and everybody doing any kind of metalwork should have this tool in their arsenal because it's just awesome. But look at the shape of this floor pan. This is all one piece right here. This is a lot of shaping and manipulating of that metal. And remember, there's a brace underneath that also for the seat mounts. There's a brace right here. There's the new brace that we put in right here. There's the piece underneath there that ties together with those two braces, and then this panel sits on top of that also. So now what's the next step? We go over it with a grinding wheel and knock all of our welds down with a hard wheel though, and that's just to knock all the high spots of the welds down. And we left this just like this to show you before we smear it all up. And what it ends up being like is you take the high spots down with your hard wheel, then you switch over to your flapping wheel with 40 grit and blend it, and then get a rough surface all the way around it here. And then we're going to smear it with Duraglass. This is fiberglass re-infilled waterproof filler. That this is particular is 3M brand, but Bondo brand as well. There's a lot of different, but you want to do the Duraglass style that's waterproof, that doesn't let moisture inhibit that. So now we smear that and over all the welds. We'll let that set up, and now we'll just sand that with like 80 grit to blend that all in. And we're done here. And then we just throw on some rubberized undercoating or paint or epoxy or whatever. And these floor pans will get all the rest of that rust off with the sander as well. So everything is clear, clean, bare metal. And then we'll coat all of this right here. And the only patch we have left to do in here now is right under the gas pedal. So we got one to do there. And as soon as that patch is done, and you can see why this rusted out, this actually has a little bracket right here that holds the bottom of the accelerator pedal, and it's got a couple screws and bolts to hold the emergency brake bracket is right underneath there, the pulley. So that, of course, you know, your foot is wet in the winter time, or even if you're in a rainy environment, your feet are wet, it's just dripping off of your foot. and it ends up right here in that stupid little spot right there. So we got a patch to do right here. We'll just run a patch right there all the way across to this, and then the floor pans will be done. So we'll have our trunk done, the whole inside of the car done, and we got a solid bodied car to work with now. No rust holes, nothing to fall through, and good. We are good. More tips and tricks coming up. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. We got a lot more coming up from One Guy's Garage Drag Weekend also, so stay tuned for that as well.
Don't forget to like this video. Click like, throw me a comment, let me know what you think. Ring the bell for those notifications when we get a new video. We got lots more coming up, guys. A lot of cool stuff coming up. I hope you guys are enjoying the ride.